All right, welcome to 7.8. I'm going to do this part in the textbook rather than my editor because it's using a specific library here that I don't want to try to figure out which one it's importing. So we're just going to go ahead and use whatever's built in here. So we're going to learn how to do nested iteration via the by working with images. So nested iteration, nested loops, it's one of those things that really kicks students in the shins. So it is a really is one of those things that students see it and it makes them go into a panic. It's really not that hard as in terms of once you get them. But the issue is that once you get them, once you get to where I am, you just kind of intuitively get them and just like forget what it was like to have to do all the hard work. What it really comes down to is that you have to slow down and think about what nested iteration looks like. So we're going to be working off of some two-dimensional table like rows and columns. Now, as I've mentioned, as many of you have asked, when you have the turtle, right? The turtle will start with zero. You know, it will start at the middle of the grid, and I often say that 0, 0. But that's not the way most computers work. This top pixel over this top corner in computer land is 0, 0. And that's the way it is for all digital images. Digital image, again, we've discussed, it's made up of pixels, small picture elements. Each of those pixels has a color value defined by a certain amount of red, green, and blue, right? So each image, as a grid of pixels, has its height and width from 0, so it has rows and columns. So here, so if there's 20 rows, remember we're going to go and use them, name them 0, 1, 2, 3 up to the 19. So here, this is at column C and row R. So row down, column across. So, so here's the tricky thing when you're dealing with rows and columns. Row and column is different than X and Y, right? The order in which you do, right? Row is down, right? It's down and up, one of these things. And column is this, left to right. Even though a column is made up of vertical elements, the specific columns are ordered from left to right, whereas the rows, even though it's row is made up of elements going from left to right, they're ordered up and down. I lose everybody? Great. This was such a source of confusion, and I'm sorry, dog. So this was a source of confusion for me, and if you don't get this immediately, I want you to take some solace in the fact that rows and columns took a while for me to get as well. So, but just remember that traditionally I will be doing row first, then column second, and that means that essentially if you're a visual thinker, it's going to be the up, down that we're going to be looking at first. So again, just to review, we will be using the red, green, blue color model. The amount of each color is the intensity. So if you have maximum intensity red, it's going to look really red. If you have maximum intensity in blue, red, and green, in red, green, and blue, it's going to be white. If you have no intensity whatsoever, it's going to be black. Maximum intensity of red and green, surprisingly, is yellow. So in order to manipulate an image, we're going to have a module to be able to access individual pixels. So we're going to do that with the image module. And let's see, citation, If you want to use it outside of your browser, you need to install the CImage module. But I'm just going to use it inside of here. So it will give us two classes, image and pixel, right? Image, again, is a thing of pixels. So each pixel object has 3 values that it cares about: the amount of red, the amount of green, and the amount of blue. And it has 6 different operations you can do, right? So we can make a new pixel with a certain amount of intensity, and then we can get the respective intensity, and then we can set the respective intensity. So first, in this example below, we create a pixel with 45 units of red, 76 units of green, 200 units of blue, and then we print out the current amount of red. So we get the amount of red, we change it to 66, print out that value, and then make green and blue identical. Okay, whatever. Pause if you need to there. I know for me, I kind of just grokked that in an instant. Okay, image objects, on the other hand, are created in one of two ways. The first, you can just grab it from a file. The image has a attribute corresponding with width, height, and collections. You can also just make one out of nothing. Create an empty image that has width and height, but it's a blank picture, white pixels. We can ask an image to tell it how wide it is, how many columns it has, how wide it is. That's the width, how many columns it has, and the height, how many rows it has. We can also get a specific pixel using getPixel, right? Get me the pixel at column 35, row 86. So here's the thing. They're doing column then row. That means they're looking for x coordinate 35, y coordinate 86. So I will be referring to that as x and y because they're doing this notation. Okay? So here they're going to go ahead and let's see. So here's their picture, Luther.png. Line 2 opens the file and uses its contents to create an image. Once the image, we have an image object, we can use the methods to access the information. So here, right, import image. Image is equal to image.jpg. Print image.getWidth. Get height. And here we're going to get that pixel at 45, 55. So. Okay. Don't know why it's asking me if I'm scary smart. So, run. Alright, you know what? Let's go ahead and get ourselves actually a much more interesting example. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this video. So you can keep working in the browser, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do pip install cimage, which is the module they said to use. Defaulting to user installation, it's saying, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and I should be able to install it, so let's go ahead and test it. I know it's hard to see. Import image. Okay, it works now, so great. I can now work on a much more interesting. Now, one of the really cool things about the way the textbook does work is that if you run their examples, you will be able to see these things update as it goes. So I doubt we're going to see that with my examples. But might as well do something different than the textbook does. All right, I've grabbed Surprise Pikachu from Know Your Meme, so we're going to work with that. So let's go ahead and just clear up what we're going to be doing first. So it does require me going over the examples. So the way this is going to work is essentially we have to use nested iteration for this. And the reason is that we can go through, we'll need to basically have two iterations, one inside of the other, an outer and an inner. So we've seen this enough to know that basically this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's look at this example. 4i in range 5, 4j in range 3. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and paste this over here, even though they have the example. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. So, right, and this does some interesting things. This prints out very interesting values. We see that the first thing, so what does this do? This says, I want to repeat whatever inside of me 5 times. And this says, I want to repeat whatever inside of me 3 times. So first, let's go ahead and make this a bit simpler. Let's go ahead and print out, let's print out not I and j in different values, because that's, I think that's just jumping into the wrong place. Let's go ahead and print out an exclamation point and print out nothing. Printing out nothing, by the way, prints out a blank line. So let's go ahead and do this. So 5 times I want to do the following. print 3 exclamation points, print nothing. Print 3 exclamation points, then print nothing. 5, so 5 of those, please. And we see that happen. 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 groups of 3 exclamation points, and that. So, also, so J has this value. So J, let's go ahead and print out J. And see what values it has. 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. Print out 0, 1, 2 5 times, right? Because we said let's do this loop 5 times total. Okay? So, let's go ahead and run now with I. So, again, before I move on to this, actually, you have this inner loop runs once for each time this outer loop runs. So, right? So when I is 1, when I is 0, we're going to run this. When I is 2, we're going to run this. When I is 3, we're going to run this. When I is 4 is going to run this. And then we're done. What is this? It's run this loop and print. Run this loop and print. So now, when I is, so let's go ahead and see our output, and we're going to break it out with that print line. So, I is currently 0. For I in range 0 to up to, but not including 3. So we're going to print out 0, 0, because that's I's value, 0, 1, 0, 2, right? Because we start out at 0 with I, and then we go through the 3 values for J, 0, 1, 2. And then we print out an empty line because we're done with the inner for loop. Then we print out, then I's value is 1. We print out the 3 values for J now, 0, 1, 2. Then I is equal to 2. We print out the 3 values for J, 0, 1, 2. We print out the 3 values for J, 0, 1, 2. Then we're at I is equal to 4. We print out the 0 values for J, 0, 1, 2. Now, why are we printing out 0, 1, 2, 3, 4? Because that is the value of I during that particular run of the inner for loop. Now, this can be very confusing. Not only is it, and one of the reasons, by the way, that it will continue to be confusing even years later is because we decided to use the letters I and J, which was a dumb move. A really, really dumb move because they look very, very much alike when you are working very quickly. Or you get in the habit of saying for I, and so you do it twice over here by accident. So you do it twice by accident, and it works this time, but you know, it could be a real pain in the butt sometimes if you try to use specific values. So just be aware of that. So, this will get taken some used to, but we can basically have an inner loop and an outer loop. Now, typically the way this works is that we're going to go say, for every row, go through each item in the row. This is typically what it's going to look like. Now this video is getting long, so I'm going to want to split it up. So last example of something easy before we move on to the images, for word in, let's go ahead and say hello, comma, world, have a nice day. Now, so we're going to do that. All right, so this is, again, an easier example than I think what they have set up. Let's go ahead and do this. For word in this list, right, for each word in here, I'm going to go ahead and just make it a variable because I so much prefer having a variable in my for loop. So for list in words, right? We could then do for each letter in the word that I'm looking over. So here I'm saying, let's go work with hello first, and then we're going to print out so we're going to look at hello first, and then we're going to look at every letter in hello. Then we're going to look at world, and for every letter in world, print it out. Then we're going to look at have, and then for every letter in have, we're going to print it out, and so on and so forth.